Hello.
Yes, Raj, you're audible. Please go ahead. And if possible, please turn on your camera.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, everyone, a panelist, and a happy Teachers' Day to all the faculties present. When I was going to analyze the policy that we are talking about today, it made me remind of a line from Merchant of Venice. Shakespeare has clearly said that, "Oh my lordship, the laws may appear as they are, but they are only goodly apples rotten at core." So I believe that yes, indeed, India needed a progressive education policy, and the taints of the colonialization that we have faced for 200 years were indeed had made a mark on our education policy. But looking at the new education policy, we have questioned this time and again. Was this the change that we needed? Before we move forward, we need to understand what's going on right now. There have been sweeping strides already which have been taken by government. The massive cuts in the budgetary allocations in both schools and the higher education institutes, which the government has been terming as the rationalization through the mergers or closures of well over 1 lakh schools in the country. So, and the slashing of seats in public funded higher education systems. So, we have always been to this question: will it be yet another smokescreen behind a different agenda that is being furthered? The NEP, when I look at the NEP 2020, I feel that it has taken the soul of right to education away from the very school education. Barring once, the RTE, if we go to the whole policy document, has not been mentioned even once. It reads more like a party manifesto, a document full of promises and no time bound have been given. The final policy has always talked about the universalization of school education from the years 3 to 18 without making it a legal right. So we have seen what happens when things are not made into legal obligations. People tend to cast it sideways. And without the RT Act and its mentioning even properly in the policy document, I do not see how universalization would be possible. Now, my take on the national education policy is very divided, mainly because of two major concerns. The first is the regulatory conundrum in this, and secondly is the essence of privatization that I could really feel that the NEP has been doing. So, first, the unbiased acceptance of private interest in this education is the fact that NEP has successfully created a place for the private players in the policy debates. This is something which should be, because before considering the document, we need to understand who was on the panel. Now, if we go to the panelists of who was like a major part of this committee, we find that they were someone who have been termed as philanthropic entrepreneurs, or in the plain words, you could call them the private entrepreneurs, which also include Mukesh Ambani, Anil Ambani. So what the major concern with NEP is it promoting privatization? And to a greater extent, yes. It is interesting to study that in this context, because the 1991 when the liberalization came, we have already seen that education was indeed given some leverage when it came to the private education sector. The private education players we were given some leverages to enter into this field, but the regulations and the authority over them were pretty high. That's why we have seen how the private medical colleges have been so regulated that even though they work for a profit model, they still won't accept these profits owing to the fact that they have been very tightly monitored. But the NEP 2020 begins with introducing private institutions with certain innocuousness and the benevolent tone by providing them with some extra and self-autonomous opportunities. Now, what is again very concerning in this is the use of terms like the public-spirited private and philanthropic private. For me, it makes no sense, because at the end of the day, for me, a private is a private. A private is an entity which will always look towards its own benefit. And what is government doing with this policy? Is it giving a social good, a social change in the hands of a private player? Because even if by the basics of a business, we all know why a private industry is raised. Private industry is itself an industry run for profits. I do not see that how giving education in hands of this philanthropic or public-spirited individuals could help us in any way. Now, my second very major concern is the dissolution of UGC. UGC has been given the task of regularly monitoring these private universities before the NEP has been brought into the effect. And at that very point, now it's on the verge of being dissolved. And on this place, we are introducing something known as the we call it the Higher Education. It's basically called the Higher Education Commission of India, or the HECI. Now, the composition of HECI is also very alarming because, again, it consists of those philanthropic private players and as well as various players with professional knowledges of their field. Now, these committee compositions have never been mentioned explicitly, and that's a matter of concern for us because if we do not understand who is running the whole education system, and that too with such a centralized tendency, that's indeed sure to raise some pros. Now, the other issue which I have really witnessed over many years in the education policy is the GDP allotment. Even this time, the new education policy has specifically pointed out that 6% of GDP needs to be being sent of an education. But then again, we need to understand that this was something which was envisaged in 1968, reiterated in 1986, reaffirmed in 1992, and yet again re-promised in 2020. I don't understand that if 6% GDP allocation is such important, why did the government not do it in its initial years? It is very shocking to note the numbers because from even if we go back 2014-15, the GDP allocation was 4 to 4.14%, which fell down to 3.2% in 2020-21, and that too before the COVID crisis was there. So the point is, what's the point of making these promises when even the government knows that at the present financial situations, it's completely not possible for us to do that? The major concern which I again have been facing is the fact that while there's a lot of focus on using technology in every aspect of education, education planning, teaching, learning, assessment, administration, management, and whatnot, the policy neglects the very digital divide that exists today in this India. We have already seen that even right now in these days when we are supposed to attend our online classes, we have been facing so many issues, though not on an institutional level, but rather on the connectivity level per se. So the point is, how is the government ignoring such vital factors which form the very backbone of this thing? Secondly, a logical explanation to that will be that while many new schools have been established, the government has failed to equip them digitally. Further, only 24% of Indian households, as per the latest reports, have internet facilities. So at this point, how are we going to make technology-driven education, which forms a major core of this new education policy, something out of a reality? It is very important to understand that which is being really put forward by the government and saying that how it's going to revolutionize is the introduction of the foreign universities. But then again, we haven't been intimated on what these foreign universities would be, whether it be the key Ivy League universities or the private universities of US. And to be really frank, looking at the issues, we don't think the Ivy universities have at most on their mind something of an expansionist view, because they are the universities run on the taxes of the people that have been collected there. So the most that could be done is a private university. Vocational training is something which has again been pressed, and vocational training excludes a classist mindset and reinforces class discrimination. This is what I feel. The implementation of this policy could mean the glorification of the attitude which thinks that a wilder's son should be a wilder yet again, and marginalizing those who have already been oppressed instead of bringing to the front. It will also meddle with the more holistic and the rounded learning of a child. Reason being, India is not the West. India, unlike the West, students have a limited avenues to pursue respectable, financially stable careers in the fields. So the policy document has neglected this, and it really makes us fear the future of the education right now. So the point is this, that at one hand, the government is pressing on the values of universalization of education, how education should reach at every nooks and corners of the society of India. And on the other hand, it has pressed on the privatization of education, which indeed is not going to help us in any way. As has been pointed out by one of the panelists, that India is moving towards a US-based education system. Indeed, I do understand India is moving towards a US-based education system, but in that point itself, do we not understand this fact that with the US education system, there still exists problem? Do we not understand this fact that the US education system sees most dropouts, reason being of the expensive education, and that's what we are pointing towards? So I do believe that India needed a major revamp in its education system. The new education system, though it really seems very robust when we read it through like prima facie on the very words if we go through. But when it comes to really analyzing the aspects, we have seen the should mentality that has been envisaged within them. From being the regulatory conundrums to the major risk of privatization, there have been a lot of issues that have not been dealt with and that need to be dealt before this education policy could be implemented on a large scale. Thank you for that.